Today's lecture will explore the fascinating evolution of American political parties following the presidency of Andrew Jackson, a period marked by dramatic change and ideological conflicts that would reshape the nation. We'll begin by understanding how Jackson's presidency laid the foundation for the modern Democratic Party, sparked the emergence of the Whig Party, and ultimately created a deeply divided political environment. This climate would prove pivotal as the nation embraced manifest destiny with political, economic, and moral ramifications that would strain the Union and drive us toward civil conflict. The political landscape of the United States was profoundly impacted by Andrew Jackson's presidency from 1829 to 1837. Jackson, often called the champion of the common man, not only redefined the presidency but also helped solidify the Democratic Party as a powerful force. His leadership emphasized populism and appealed to the average American, particularly farmers and laborers, whom he believed deserved more representation in government. Jacksonian democracy, characterized by its promotion of individual rights and democratic participation, attracted a diverse coalition that became the foundation of the Democratic Party as we know it today. Jackson supporters were critical of what they perceived as elite control of the government, reflecting frustration with earlier administration that they saw as aristocratic. They believed the government should represent the interests of ordinary citizens rather than cater to a privileged few. This sentiment helped solidify the party's appeal among small farmers, laborers, and the emerging middle class who sought greater influence in a rapidly industrializing society. Following Jackson's presidency, Democratic leaders like Martin Van Buren, who became the 8th president in 1837, sought to further institutionalize Jacksonian principles. Despite facing the Panic of 1837, a severe economic depression that caused widespread hardship, Van Buren reinforced the Democratic Party's commitment to limited government intervention, arguing that federal involvement in economic crisis would ultimately harm citizens. His administration emphasized minimal federal interference, framing the Democratic Party as a party of individual rights and limited government, even amid economic challenges. Van Buren's skill in navigating political patronage also helped consolidate the party's influence and set the stage for its continued growth. In contrast, those who opposed Jackson's policies came together to form the Whig Party in the early 1830s. The Whigs, a coalition of former national Republicans, anti-Jacksonian Democrats, and others discontented with Jacksonian democracy, advocated for a stronger federal government that would actively promote economic modernization and infrastructure development. Whigs believed that the federal government should take a proactive role in the economy, funding roads, canals, and railways to spur growth and unite the nation. The Whigs were also highly critical of Jackson's use of presidential power, which they viewed as excessive and potentially tyrannical. Jackson's forceful use of the veto, his attack on the National Bank, and his staunch resistance to state nullification, exemplified in the nullification crisis of 1832, were all seen by Whigs as a dangerous outreach. The party's most prominent leader, Henry Clay, sought the presidency 3 times and championed what he called the American system. This economic plan advocated for proactive tariffs, a national bank, and federal investments in internal improvements. The rivalry between the Democrats and the Whigs ushered in what historians refer to as a second party system. This period, from 1830s to the 1850s, was characterized by heightened political competition and voter engagement, with both parties striving to energize the electorate through organized conventions and innovative campaigning tactics. By 1840s, the nominating convention had become a staple for American people, with party members gathering to select their candidates and rally around their platforms. This process not only energized voters but also fostered a sense of identity and loyalty among party members, helping to institutionalize the political landscape in ways that would have lasting effects. During this time, the Democrats and Whigs faced divisive issues, especially around the topic of westward expansion, which had come to embody the ideal of manifest destiny. Americans, increasingly confident and nationalistic, began to see it as their destiny to expand the nation's border to the Pacific. This vision, however, brought new political and ethical questions into sharp relief. How would the United States handle governance in these new territories? Would slavery be permitted? And most significantly, what would become of the indigenous population inhabiting these lands? One of the most contentious issues for both parties was the question of Texas annexation. In 1836, Texas declared independence from Mexico and sought to join the United States. While many Americans supported annexation, hoping to extend the country's territory and influence, the issue quickly divided public opinion, especially along sectional lines. Many Northern Whigs opposed annexation, fearing it would strengthen slavery's hold on the nation. Conversely, Southern Democrats supported it, seeing it as crucial for preserving their agricultural economy and political power in Congress. President John Tyler, who had succeeded William Henry Harrison in 1841, saw annexing Texas as a way to bolster Southern interest and ensure the security of slavery in the region. This stance, however, fractured the Democratic Party, as Northern Democrats were less inclined to support a policy that risked reigniting sectional tensions. As the 1844 presidential election approached, the Democratic Party found itself deeply divided. Martin Van Buren, who was initially the leading candidate, tried to downplay the Texas issue due to its potential divisiveness. But Southern Democrats were determined to see annexation through. This internal conflict led to Van Buren's defeat at the Democratic National Convention and the nomination of a relatively unknown figure, James Polk. Polk's platform explicitly championed the re-annexation of Texas and the reoccupation of Oregon, issues that reasoned with a public eager for expansion. His candidacy and subsequent victory underscored the party's strategy in tapping into expansionist sentiments that captivated American voters, particularly those aligned with the ideals of manifest destiny. James K. Polk's presidency marked a turning point in the pursuit of manifest destiny. Polk entered office with a clear set of objectives: to lower tariffs, re-establish the independent treasury, secure Oregon, and acquire California. His focus on territorial expansion reflected his administration's commitment to the idea that America's growth was not only inevitable but divinely sanctioned. Polk's presidency would go on to realize much of his ambitious agenda. Under his leadership, the U.S. secured Oregon up to the 49th parallel through diplomatic negotiations with Britain, and his administration orchestrated the annexation of Texas. However, his most controversial achievement was the Mexican-American War, which would culminate in the acquisition of vast territories, including California and New Mexico. This expansion came at great cost, particularly in lives lost during the war and in the escalating tensions over slavery in newly acquired territories. While the election of 1844 had reinforced Democratic dominance, it also exposed deepening sectional divides that would soon destabilize the second-party system. As the U.S. grew in both size and complexity, disagreements over slavery became unavoidable. The Compromise of 1850, an attempt to quell disputes by balancing the interests of free and slave states, underscored the challenge of managing a rapidly expanding nation with competing regional interests.